Hello everyone, today we cover a classic Mercedes again. When you think about a Benz, this car will most likely be in your mind. It is probably one of the most iconic Benzes from the mid-80s to the mid-90s. Here in Europe the car was extensively used as a cab. Build quality on these cars was phenomenal. Could it still be interesting to own one in 2020? These cars are potentially 35 years old. The youngest one being 25 years old. This car is from an era in Mercedes history when the company still had vision in building the best possible car in its class. This car was built and designed by old school Mercedes-Benz engineers who pushed the limits when it comes to engineering. Many of these cars were in fact over-engineered to the point of ridiculousness. In the early 90s and the late 80s, Mercedes started to have trouble with the likes of Lexus, a company that seemed to take over the place of Mercedes as a good alternative. This changed Mercedes' vision from a company that was built on engineering to a company that was built on accountancy. This W124 and the W201, for instance, came of an era of nuts and bolts. This was an engineering masterpiece. Nowadays, cars of Mercedes are not even closely built to this kind of engineering, because in the long run it's not sustainable for the company to build such good cars. That being said, these cars are old now, so many parts will fail just because of age. Let's start with a bit of history. This car first came to the market in 1984 and was built until August of 1995. In India, cars were built until 2000. But what I've read is that the build quality was nowhere near than cars that rolled off the production line in Germany. This car literally filled the gap between the compact Mercedes cars that we now know as the C-Class and the bigger S-Class limousines like the iconic W140. Before we start listing weak points and disadvantages, I will tell you that you need to put some money aside if you want to run this car on a daily basis. It's an old car and parts will break down eventually. You should be prepared for that. If this is a project car, then you could take more time with it and fix problem in your own pace. You can still do a lot of do-it-yourself mechanics on this car, since these cars are the last of an era before computers and electronics made everything way more complex. This car is still quite safe. The construction is solid and a few safety features that were new for the time were being introduced in the E-Class W124, like for instance ABS and airbags. Let's inspect this car further as a potential buyer. First, we focus on the body and the chassis. The body of the Benz is well protected against rust, but there are some problems with the subframe mounts, wheel arches and sills that have been filled. Check for rust bubbles around the windscreen and sunroof. Rusty tailgates on station wagons or on the boot lid of sedans. Make sure that the electronic top of the convertible operates without shuddering and that it can be secured to the windscreen without excessive force. Body panels are still available new or second hand, and even something like a replacement grille costs less than $500. Engine and transmission. These engines can cover more than 300,000 kilometers before ever needing significant work. They are built to go on forever. There was an engine for almost everyone, from a 4-cylinder to the 5-liter V8 in the 500e. If you want to do a full rebuild of the engine, you easily exceed the value of a low-cost car. Exhaust smoke at startup is likely due to worn valve stem seals, but a constant stream of blue means serious internal wear, obviously found on cars with very high mileages. Overheating is a known problem, especially if the radiator is clogged up and the clutch activated fan isn't working properly. The fan should rotate quickly when the system is hot and stop within one revolution once the engine has switched off. Another thing to check is for contaminated oil and coolant, which can result in having to do with a cylinder head replacement to fix. Oil leaks from the rear of the rocker cover and timing case aren't a major problem. Suspension and brakes. Excessive body roll is due to a weakened coil spring, worn shock absorbers or both. Look for cars with sagging suspension. Rear subframe mountings that are worn will allow the wheels to deflect rearwards, especially under hard acceleration. Tires that are worn out on the edges indicate component wear. When planning to buy the car, always test the brake system on an empty road. The ABS equipped cars should stop straight and without locking off any of the wheels. Interior and electronics. There are a few electric problems that you should know of. First of all, the air conditioning problems are expensive to fix, so make sure that the air is flowing from all vents and it feels cold. You could check the footwells for wet carpet from a leaking aircon evaporator. Check the seats to see if the electronic adjustments still function. Look at the sunroof for signs of water leakages. Also check if the sunroof still closes properly and if the mechanism still functions. Also check if the electric windows still work and the stereo still functions after all this time. Engines. There were many engine options available. The 4-cylinders offer sufficient performance, but the 6-cylinder cars are barely more expensive and will transform the W124 to a new height. If you test drive the 6-cylinder, you need more than a 5-minute test drive to appreciate its character. In town it will not show you its full potential. Again, it was designed for long motorway journeys and this is where the car really shines. These cars need to have at least 6 cylinders. It fits the character of the car best. If you have deeper pockets, then look for a 500e. This car was built in a cooperation between Mercedes and Porsche. It offers a 5-liter V8 that you will also find in the SLR129 from that era. The 500e also had different suspension setup, bigger brakes and a slightly bigger wheel arches. It's a true sleeper. It had around 330 horsepower, which was quite a lot for that time. Let's go to the verdict. There are still many W124 cars, the first E-Class available. Finding a good one, however, is quite a challenge. First owners usually took good care of them. Second owners were mostly enthusiasts already. These cars are quite bulletproof and easy to work on. That being said, it's potentially more than 30 years old by now. If you want to drive it for everyday use, don't buy the cheapest you find. If you want it as a project car, it's perfect for that as well. Parts are still available, either new or second hand. It won't break the bank and it's a potential future classic. It's a typical Benz from the design era that I personally really appreciate. This is like a fine aged wine or whiskey. It gets better with the years. Thanks for watching this buyer's review. I hope it was useful for you. If so, subscribe to my channel. And we hope to see you guys in the next video.